Well, good morning. Great to be with you again on this new week. Yes, it's a Monday, and you are with George at Growth Point, growing as you're going through life. And we've been speaking about back to God, and we're going to continue to do that. And this week, back to God's timing. Come on, we need to come back to God's timing. How many of you know God's timing is a perfect timing? Sometimes we want things to happen now, today. But God says, not in your time, but in my time. Notice this, we need to understand that God doesn't live in our timeline. God is eternal. We have a timeline that we live by. But so often we need to realize that God has a timing for all things. You know, we want things to happen immediately. We are this microwave kind of generation where we can just pop it into the microwave and a minute away we've got popcorn, or we've got everything that we want. No. Sometimes things have got to grill a little bit, has got to just go on to a little bit of low heat and simmer there for a little while, and yeah, that's how we do it. But some of us just want things now, today. So as we venture down this road called life, we must understand that God is timeless and there is no time with God. So don't rush God when you are praying for things in life. Sometimes we do. And when we rush things and we rush into things, I know I've done it. I'm one of those impulsive people. I want things done now. I'm a now person. Don't tell me we're going to do it and then it's going to be a month later and we're still not doing. No. I want it done now. And so even when it comes to God and I put my faith and trust in God, I kind of want God to work in my timeline, not His timeline. And what you do, you kind of make mistakes and you look at the things that you do and you go back on that and you say, God, if only I listened, if only I waited for you, if only God, it's too late. Now you've got to suffer the consequence. Now you've got to press through. Now you've got to believe God will bring it about and change the situation, but again in His time. And so I come back to that. Now, Revelation 1 verse 8 says this: I am the Alpha and the Omega. Speaking of God, He says, the Lord God, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. And so again, this is what we need to understand, that God is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the beginning and the end, and we need to live in an understanding of what He wants for us. And He knows the best, and He knows the timeline of our lives. Now, when God created man, He created man with a purpose to fellowship with Him. And by doing this, He placed man in His timeline. So God said, I'm going to fellowship with man, but I know that I can't fellowship with man in the way of my timeline, because my time is eternal. There will come a time when I'll spend eternity with them, but now I'm placing them upon this earth, and it's going to be in their timeline. I'm going to give them a timeline, and I'm going to walk with them in their timeline. Now, Genesis 1:14 says that God set in place the sun for day and the moon for night. He also set seasons in place. He did that for man, not for Himself. What did He do? He brought about time. And again, what am I trying to say to you on this Monday morning? I'm trying to say to you on this Monday morning, learn how to live in the timeline of God. You're going to say, no, this is ridiculous. One day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day with God. So I don't want to get caught up in God. No, wait upon God. When you bring your request before God, make it known to God. Now again, Psalm 91 tells us, and what does it say to us? Listen to what it says. It says, those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find their rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Where do we find our rest? In God. So when I bring my request to God, I leave it with God, and now I learn how to rest in God. I know some of you are saying, man, that is a difficult one to live by God's timeline and live in the rest of God. Well, when you live in the rest of God, you have peace, because then God gives you peace. But when you're still pushing the point from your side, there will be no peace. You hear what I'm saying to you? So once free will of man was broken, fellowship between God and man was severed. That happened. And so now all of a sudden we move out of the timeline of God into our own timeline. And now we see how the enemy starts to break things down around us. Now, when Jesus stepped out of eternity into man's timeline to bring lost man back into God's timeline, fellowship was renewed. And this is where we need to have our fellowship, in the rest of God, in the shelter of God. They are back in the Almighty of God. Man's will, which was God-focused, was broken by the serpent to turn man against God. But again, God restored it through the cross. Isn't that wonderful to know? Again, what am I trying to say to you on this Monday? I'm trying to say to you, it's time for us to come back to God. Find our rest in God. Yes, we know there is a time we want things done now, but we need to learn how to rest in God. So today, when you come back to God, you will find your rest in God.